This episode is brought to you by Plugra European-style butter, crafted for those who demand precision and exceptional results in the kitchen. With 82% butter fat and a slow churn process, Plugra gives you flakier crusts, fluffier cakes, and rich, melt-in-your-mouth pastries. Because great baking starts with great butter. Unlike standard American butters, which have only 80% butter fat, Plugra ensures the ideal moisture and fat balance so your recipes turn out just right every time. That's why professional chefs trust Plugra and home bakers love it. Plugra's slow churn process creates a smooth, creamy butter that gives dough a soft, pliable texture, making rolling, folding, and laminating effortless. Whether you're perfecting a buttery pie crust or layering a delicate croissant, Plugra helps you bake with confidence. Experience the difference for yourself. Find Plugra in stores near you or visit plugra.com. That's Plugra.com.
Hey everyone, Greg Benson here, and if you're a regular listener of The Speakeasy, you probably know by now that I've been working to bring 100% pure, actually good-tasting agave nectar to the United States for a minute. But I wanted to give you a bit of an update. I actually got to travel to the farm where these amazing plants have been growing for decades, and it was just a genuinely moving experience. I got to see these agave in their natural habitat and see what it means to Rogelio, the farmer, to be able to care for the descendants of the same agave that his grandfather was growing almost a full century ago. That's why I'm proud to announce Quixote Imports, a new venture that's dedicated to preserving these agave and, yes, still bringing in the same fantastic, earthy, lightly fruity agave nectar that's going to make you wonder why you've been wasting your time with the crap at the grocery store. Plus, our fans here at the Speakeasy can get free shipping at checkout with promo code SPEAKEASY, so don't wait. Head on over to quixoteimports.com and see what agave nectar is actually supposed to taste like, and use promo code SPEAKEASY for free shipping. Salud.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil finds his groove in them rhythm and blues that sing. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
Welcome back to The Speakeasy. I'm Damon Boelte.
I'm Sother Teague.
And I'm Greg Benson. And guys, there's a new vodka on the market.
No.
I don't know if y'all
vodka.
heard about this.
This never happens.
I know. It's been what, decades since there's been any development in vodka science, a breakthrough of this level. Yeah. But I mean, it's coming from our preeminent vodka scientists. So no surprise. I'm of course referring to action star and filmmaker Dolph Lundgren.
Oh my God.
Has released a new vodka. Hard Cut vodka is out. And you guys know I have a policy for not talking shit on things until I've tried them. There's a chance this stuff could be really fucking good. But like, I don't know, initial thoughts, what do you guys think?
I mean, my first thought, as soon as you said the name, I let out an audible sigh. Like, come on. Hard Cut vodka from Dolph Lundgren. His whole persona is this like sweaty, super masculine, never wearing a shirt, sort of martial arts, but also just fighter guy. I don't know. I guess it tracks, but
with vodka?
Exactly right. Like I would expect something more like, frankly, I guess whiskey or at least like I don't know, some sharply bitter Amaro or something. Like what's so hard about vodka? I think vodka is the softest place.
The cut, obviously, the cut is hard. Exactly. Yes.
Well, I mean, good form, I guess.
let's call in a sample, I guess. But otherwise, it's today is Vermouth Day. Did you guys know that?
I did not. Happy National Vermouth Day, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. National or international? Vermouth seems like it'd be international.
It might be international. You might be right.
Well, you can mix your national vermouth or international vermouth with some Hard Cut vodka, and you'll have yourself a really good martini on your hands.
I guess so, yeah. But I would rather mix it up in a Manhattan. Actually, it being Vermouth Day today, and then Monday being National or perhaps International Cocktail Day. I feel like it reminds me of my inspiration for moving to New York City. It was the Manhattan cocktail. I know I've told that story a billion times.
Tell it again.
What's that?
Tell it again. Let's hear it.
Oh, well,
let's do it, man.
There's new listeners every episode.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, I graduated school early and graduated graphic design school early and moved out to the real world early and bought my house early, like when I was 19. I was in Oklahoma City and I was a designer. Then I opened up my motorcycle and scooter shop, sold that. Then I was working in guitar shops and touring in a band. So I had done motorcycles, design, music, which I still do, all those things. And then I'm sitting at my friend's bar one day, and I'm like in my early 20s. I'm like sitting there just thinking, God, I own a house. I'd already refinanced it after 1 year. You know, like I just grew up really quickly and did everything that I thought I had as a hobby, except I'd been collecting cocktail bars since I was 12 or cocktail books since I was 12 years old. And so I'm sitting there at my buddy's bar, and it was the only like cocktail bar at the time in Oklahoma City. Now there's tons of them. It's an amazing city. And I'm having a Manhattan cocktail. And like the answer was literally right under my nose. I was like, I'm going to move to New York, get into the bar business. And I did. And now I am. And I have been for a long time. So it's a really special cocktail for me. And I love that this weekend is flanked by vermouth and the vermouth day and the cocktail day. So it's pretty cool. You know, it kind of tells the story of my the career path that got me to where we all got to meet and get to travel the world, and just it's the best industry in the world, And
couldn't agree more.
Speaking of Manhattans, we've got something in front of us today that I already opened it and I'm taking sips of it. I'm like, damn, this would make an incredible Manhattan. We have today in front of us, we have the Woodford Reserve double oaked, which we actually have. I feel like about once every year or two, we get to talk with our friends at Woodford Reserve, and it's usually a little bit before the Derby, and they always go big with the Derby. They always have different artists with the bottle, and they have different recipes for juleps. And so today it makes total sense that we have from Woodford Reserve, we have Elizabeth McCall. Welcome back to the show. It's been a few years, right?
Welcome back.
I think it was COVID, and I was like confined to my house, like coming to you from my home studio. So now I'm in my office.
Yeah,
and it's great to be back with you all. And I had to Google who Dolph was. Now I know who he is. And he's got his own vodka. Good for him.
Yeah, he was the Russian in Rocky IV. That's kind of his thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that sums it up.
And America's preeminent vodka scientist. You know, the man wears many hats, clearly.
I mean, he was also
vodka's complicated, so
he was also in A View to a Kill with the James Bond franchise. Like the dude did a lot.
That's true.
Everybody's going to recognize his name and face and the hard cut vodka. But let's talk about whiskey instead. So you were on. It was episode 420, boys, if you remember. It was during the pandemic. It was just before Valentine's Day, and you were on, and we had, I think, a fun time to this show. We had the double oaked, and we were drinking that and tasting chocolates with you because Valentine's Day was imminent. But now you're back, and you're here to talk to us about the double oaked. Can you first tell us again, remind the audience a little bit about what double oaked is and what it's all about? It launched back in 2012. And then let's dive into what double oaked is. But we also need to talk, of course, about the fact that when you were here before, you had a different position, and now you've been elevated to, you're now the master distiller at Woodford. So let's talk about that too.
Congratulations.
We got a lot of ground to cover. So let's
there's a lot of ground to cover. And first of all, I'll just start out by saying, like, to refresh everyone, if they don't know about double oaked, and you are a bourbon fan or bourbon curious. I've never even said that, but
bourbon curious.
Breaking news here on the Speakeasy.
I feel like every evening at about like 6 p.m. I get a little bourbon curious.
Yeah,
that's kind of
daily event, right?
Yep.
At 5 o'clock, I'm like, okay, is it time? I'm waiting for it to go ding. There's 5. Okay. But double oaked is the most friendly hello you'll get from a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It's the number one selling ultra premium bourbon whiskey on the market, and there's a reason for that because it's so good and it's so inviting. So double oaked is very sweet aromatic forward. So that's when it's your butterscotch, your caramel, all that yumminess, and it's because it goes into, we take our regular Woodford Reserve and we put it into a second barrel. And the second barrel is heavily toasted and lightly charred. So all of our barrels are toasted. All of them are charred. But with the double oak barrel, we go extra long in the toasting process. So we'll go for 30 minutes of toasting, and then we flash char 5 to 10 seconds. And that extra toast is what brings out that sweetness in the barrel and really makes the whiskey really sweet, aromatic forward. And we age in the second barrel, so the double oak barrel, for up to 12 months. So that's how we get double oaked, which is really, it's lovely. But then we had a scenario where we had some barrels that went past the 12-month spec, and every month in that, I know. Well, it was like the way that we could blend those off into a regular batch of double oaked, and so you wouldn't taste the difference. But every month in that barrel, really, the second barrel really shifts the flavor profile a lot. Mm-hmm. And so we decided, let's hold on to it and see what happens. So we ended up holding on to this whiskey. We did up to 30 months. And so it's just kind of an average age of 30 months in the second barrel. And that time really shifts it from being like super sweet aromatic to one that's big, bold, and just something that it's very oak forward, but not in the tannin sort of way. It's more of the dark chocolate, leathery, tobacco-y, kind of herbaceous. It's lovely. It is so wonderful to sip on, and it was so fun to see how the whiskey shifted with that much time in the second barrel. So it was something we only released at the distillery. We were going to release it once and then be done with it. And then it just gained so much popularity, and we can do that again. We'll just hold back a few more barrels, and we'll intentionally do it this time. And so that's
instead of accidentally.
It's like, so we started holding on to it, and it went from being something that would sell out in like 7 months to then within hours, and we would sell out at the distillery. And so finally we planned and were able to release it nationally. So now everyone in the USA and Canada can enjoy Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. I don't have to keep responding to people saying like, oh, I'm sorry, you can only get it, because people would ask, and they're like, well, when can I get it? And I'm like, well, we just don't make enough of it. We don't plan to have it go beyond the distillery, and now it's out. So I'm really excited to finally get to share it with everyone.
So the Double has been a distillery only release for quite some time now, but what you're saying is that we have our bottles that you sent us for this episode, but what you're saying is this is now available for the consumer all over the country and other countries too.
Finally national, and then we do have it in Canada as well. So this is the first time ever it's been released beyond the state of Kentucky, and so we're really excited for people to have this opportunity to finally taste it. But it is a limited one-time offering, so we're only releasing it once a year, and then once it's gone, and then we'll release it again next year, always in that like end of January, early February timeframe.
Now, I know, like with other consumer products, it's beneficial to have limited release items, and I assume that that's the same in the whiskey world. But also, I assume if demand gets high enough, you'll continue to backstock enough to release it as a permanent product. Is that in the agenda, or is that not yet?
As of right now, the plan is just to do it as a limited one-time offering. But you never know if it does become a permanent SKU that we offer year round, and always make sure we have enough of it. So it'll just kind of be a planning and logistics, and then also just strategy, kind of thinking about what's the best place from our portfolio perspective. Like, where does this live?
Right.
Well, I've got some right here, and I think we were all marveling off air that we're just like, I don't know. We get a lot of stuff sent to us here at the Speakeasy. It's a nice life, I got to admit.
Do. Yeah.
But like off air, we were all sampling it, and we're just kind of like, the general consensus was kind of us being like, "Fuck, that's really fucking good." And like, I know what I like about it, but I'm not the master distiller of Woodford Reserve, so I'm really curious, kind of what really spoke to you about this. Like, what made you think like, oh yeah, this is ready. This is something special. This is a thing that I want to share with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when we first released it back in 2015, so it's been 10 years that it's been on the market, and Chris Morris was the master distiller then, and I think I may have still been master taster. And sitting down in his office and tasting it with him, it was like mind blowing. I wasn't expecting it to be what it is. I wasn't expecting it to be so big and bold. I was expecting like, oh, it's just gonna be way more butterscotch. It's just gonna like be way more what double oaked was. And it has shown me just how important it is to really think about your maturation and how you're finishing your products and the amount of time in the barrel and to taste along the way, and just because it's beautiful. And then to taste it now, I just, as the master distiller and being able to release it on a bigger scale, we had to think about, what is the standard of this product? And I had to think about making sure that the quality was where we want it. Because when you're doing it on a small scale, it shifts a little bit year to year. We have smaller batches. So actually people would tell me like, oh, well, last year's was really good, or this one is better. So it was kind of like tasting to make sure we're hitting the profile we want. And that when we introduce it to the world, I mean, it was like a lot of pressure, I guess, is where I felt a lot of pressure in really wanting people to love it and embrace it, because it was so highly talked about, but people couldn't get their hands on it. So I wanted, once they got their hands on it, to love it. And it's something that you sip on and you just savor it. The oak is there. I love the sort of leathery and like dark chocolate. And then like, I think I even put in there, like, it's kind of like a hickory weird, like, it's not smoky, but it's like a nice sweet wood kind of character. I don't know.
Almost mesquite in a way.
Yeah, I'm also getting a little like herbal nose. I haven't tasted it yet.
It's kind of the best way I can describe it is it's kind of like 10x bourbon. It's like all of the flavors I like about bourbon, all of them dialed up to 11. And it's anyone who's ever made any recipe on the stove that requires any sort of spicy ingredient knows that when you just multiply everything across the board by the same number, it doesn't always taste the same at the end of the day. But the amazing thing about this is that all of the flavors that I just gravitate towards when I'm craving them, I go for bourbon, are all similarly enhanced, and yet none of them is kind of crowding the others out, which I think is cool.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to describe it. It's like very layered. And so as you take different sips, it kind of reveals itself in different ways. It's spicy, but not an offensive spice. It's not, I don't know.
It kind of takes me back to what I was saying before about like the Manhattan being so influential for me. It's like, to me, like this, there's some parts of this that it's tricking my brain. I don't know if it's because I'm talking about the Manhattan, but it's like, there is a spiciness to it that kind of makes me think about rye, but then there's this really nice, like soft, like kind of, there's a little bit of just, I would say richness over sweetness, right? It's not sweet, obviously. But then there's certain spices that are in it kind of like remind me, it's almost like I'm drinking for like a Manhattan in this glass,
Yeah. I was gonna say, cause it has sort of that vermouthy, like herbal dark fruit character to it too.
Yeah.
For sure.
We like it, is what we're saying.
In itself, like in the glass, it's also just the color of it is like, I mean, obviously it's double oak, but I mean, it even looks like a Manhattan, it's like,
it's so dark.
Well, Sother and I can't see red, so we'll have to take your word for that, Damon.
Oh, right.
But...
Yeah. It's another great shade of brown. My favorite shade. I'm getting like some dill and like hazelnuts, right? Like toasted hazelnut and dill. Delicious whiskey. Way to go. But I want to roll back a little and talk about how this happens. I think you said something like these barrels were forgotten. Is that the word you used? How does one forget barrels?
weren't forgotten, because
I mean, I know I have a lot of stuff here, but I know what else here.
We just had a situation where we dumped a batch of double oaked, and then we had a few barrels that we just didn't need to go in that batch because our batch size is only roughly 120 barrels. Our tanks are only 6,000 gallons. So we had a couple barrels that were left over that we didn't need to. And I think what we had historically done was, we'll just blend it off in the next batch.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like, well, no, let's just see what happens. Let's hold on to these and let them go. And it was really small. I mean, our distillery series, well, we held on to a few, and then we were like, oh, well, this could be a weird, and this sounds way too like I'm making it up, but it's true that we just started the distillery series in 2015, and it was like we hadn't planned, like we were just like, oh, it was very serendipitous, the timing. And so then we added a few more barrels to that to make basically like a 22 barrel batch. It was the first release was super small. So that's why we have that kind of average age range of barrels from, we say double because it's like instead of 12 months, 24 months, but then we had some older barrels. So it's more like a 30-month average age. And it was not intended, and it wasn't intended to be what it is. But what's great is that then we started to really kind of massage it and get it to where it's like, this is it. And it's perfection now. So it's a way that you say it's like a happy little accident. And then, that was well received. We loved it. And then you kind of work it into something that's permanent and perfection of that happy accident, I guess.
I love that. That's super cool when something like that happens, that you can turn I don't know. It's nice to know that we live in a timeline that can still kind of like surprise you and have these like little quirks where you think you've kind of gotten everything figured out, and then, oh, hey, let's run with this thing that we didn't even know we were sort of doing in the background and see where it goes. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm curious for you, because as we mentioned at the top of the show, you've gotten a promotion since the last time you were in the virtual studio with us. And you mentioned you were kind of nervous putting this out. Was this sort of your first like major venture in your new position with Woodford Reserve? And sort of how did you walk us through kind of what was going through your mind as you were shepherding this from the barrels to store shelves?
Yeah, well, it's a really weird thing, and something I'm still wrapping my brain around. That my name's on the bottle. Right. Like, so even though, I mean, I work for a major corporation, there are a lot of people that work at the distillery that are working in research and development to make sure that this whiskey tastes good, but they all have their own sort of angle that they're coming from. Right. Mm-hmm. My angle is this better taste damn good, or else I'm the only one who's really getting shit for it. Right. Like everybody else can just be like, I
What's that?
But like,
I did my job.
And that's something that is really starting to resonate with me as I start to just really, I get what Chris Morris would tell me. He was the one person who sat in rooms where, no, we can't make that change. No, we can't do that. What's it going to do to the flavor of the whiskey? And you really are like, Woodford doesn't have a voice. We are the voice. I am the voice of Woodford. I make sure that this whiskey that everybody loves is going to taste the right way. And so it was a big deal, because it was like, I just was really anxious about people loving it and being in this really premium space. Like, are people going to be comfortable that we're releasing something what we released? It was $199. And I felt it was very deserving of that. But when you look, like, you just don't know. I mean, I guess I just think like, I'm like, are you okay to pay that much? Because I think it's worth it. And we wouldn't price it there if it wasn't worth it. And it's something we spent a lot of time nurturing. It's extra time in the barrel. It's just, and it's just something that it was really special. So all the things that lined up, I was anxious about it. And then you start getting feedback, and people are like, they're loving it. They're buying it like crazy. And the reviews are amazing. You're like, oh God, thank God. Like, everybody's okay. And it's fine. It's just a weird seat to sit in, to be very honest. And when I start planning our future masters collections and all the things, it's like, I really want to make sure it's something I'm proud of. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of people who also get a say-so in this brand, because it's not just my brand. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who gets the praise or the hate on it. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I wouldn't have signed up for it if I wasn't. But.
Well, it's cool, though, that you have, that the brand itself has such a devout following, and I know I told you this last time you were on the show, but like Woodford Reserve was the first bourbon I ever tried where I was like, oh wait. I mean, obviously this was a long time ago, but there's a lot more of them out there nowadays. But it's still one that for me, it's like I always have it in my home bar. It's always in my bar. But it's like it was the first one where I was like, oh wow, okay. Like it was the first one where I decided I could drink bourbon straight. I mean, I was like 19 or 20 or something like that. So, my palate was not like fully developed at the time, but, so I wasn't drinking the best stuff, but this was like, it kind of changed the game for me as far as American whiskey goes. Right. And so I've always had, and there are people like that with other brands, like, Maker's Mark has a big following, I've seen wedding cakes that have like, the red wax icing going down, stuff like that. That's a little too far for me, but I would have a Kentucky Derby cake. That'd be kind of cool. Some horses running around it, but yeah, I get what you're saying because like to step into a role with a company that's so world renowned, and then like your first big expression, it's like that. There's a lot of nerves that come with that, but the cool thing is it kicks ass and it's delicious. So good job.
They wouldn't have elevated you to the position if they didn't have faith in if they didn't have faith in you and you had a great record thus far, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So congratulations, it's delicious. I'm very much enjoying it right now. I know it's nearly 1:00 here at Damon. It's nearly 10 a.m. for you. But you mentioned the Kentucky Derby cake you'd like to have. But let's talk about the Kentucky Derby. Woodford Reserve, always a big sponsor of the Derby. This year, no different. What do you got going this year? And what's Woodford's hand in the Kentucky Derby every year?
We are the presenting sponsors of the Kentucky Derby. So everywhere you look, Woodford is all around with Churchill Downs and the Twin Spires. And it's a partnership that we started with Churchill back in 1999 as the official bourbon. And we were the first and only official bourbon of the Kentucky Derby. And that was a great partnership to start it just was like a perfect little pairing. Because Churchill really needed to up the ante, get people excited about celebrating the bourbon or the horse heritage in Kentucky, the Derby, and then we had this little brand, that just came out in 1996, but it was very much celebrating everything Kentucky, and it's nestled right in the heart of horse country. So we've had a long kind of weird history with horses, just as a brand, and so when the opportunity opened up for us to be the official bourbon, we jumped on it and we started creating special limited release bottles to help commemorate the Derby. And that has been a tradition since 1999. And we've done it every year. And I feel like every year we kind of up the ante a little bit. We also introduced the $1,000 mint julep at that time. And that was such a crazy concept. And Chris Morris talks about like running around and making mint juleps for people at their seats. And now we sell, I think this year we haven't done the official press release yet. That's coming in a couple weeks, but we'll sell like over 150 of the $1,000 and $5,000 mint juleps, and we've upped it to we have a $5,000 mint julep now, and it's all.
First of all, you got to talk to us about the 1,000 one. I remember some of the details. It comes in like a gold julep cup, etc. Talk about that one, and then talk about the 5,000. I'm sure our listeners want to hear this because I do.
Yeah. People are always like so fascinated, and it becomes so regular for me. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Derby season. We talk about $1,000 mint juleps and $5,000 mint juleps, and that's not weird, but it is, and
it's a little weird.
It's very weird. The $1,000 mint julep is what we kickstarted this program with, and it was always an intention to have this unique, really fun take on a mint julep classic cocktail, but then it also has a charitable aspect to it. So that was and always with horse related charities. And so I'm really excited for when we announce ours for this year. But we partnered with many different. Last year we did Backside Learning Center, so supporting all the backside workers who really make the Derby and the horse racing industry come to life. And so we gave all the proceeds to that. And so it's been really fun having that and just talking about these quirky cocktails. And sometimes I think people always are like, did you get the ice from Finland? And it's this crazy, there's always some crazy twist. And so we've kind of brought it into being really trying to be very Kentucky focused, or just on whatever theme we're celebrating. So it's a different cocktail recipe every year. The cup changes every year. And so it's just a different artist. So we partner with artists for the cup, and it's just a really fun program. Great thing to get people talking about Derby. And then a few years ago, we introduced the $5,000 mint julep. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was actually a $2,500 mint julep cup. And then last year, I think, is when we did the $5,000 one. And those are
inflation, man. It's a killer.
Yeah, let's get them. Let's go get them. Let's charity. Get in there.
But that's what I love. And like our charity this year is so tiny. I wish I could say who it is, but we haven't officially announced it yet. But it is just like they're going to really, really benefit from the funds. And it's a horse related charity. So, and I'm a horse person, so I love that. But yeah, we upped the ante with the $5,000 cup, and it's a gold plated cup. And sometimes it has like gems on it. I mean, it's just stunning. And it's an experience. You come to the Derby, you come to the $1,000 mint julep tent, and you get your cocktail, you get your special mint julep made for you, and it's VIP area. So you can only go in if you've bought the cup. And so it's just something it's become a tradition. People buy these every year.
Who's making the juleps? Do you need bartender? Do you need bartenders?
Yeah, we do. We hire, we get some really great local bartenders to make the mint juleps, and they do a great job. And so it's Derby's a spectacle, right? I mean,
oh yeah, for sure. I've been a couple of times. It's amazing.
I had Chris Morris on the show in the studio in Brooklyn, probably almost 10 years ago. And I got to have a $1,000 mint julep in the studio, and that was really special.
Made by him. Yes,
I think it was called. I think that year was called like Run for the Roses. So it had like a lot of rose elements in it, and made by Chris Morris. So that was really cool.
But they also mint julep. They actually taste good. People like to hate on them, but they're so good.
Oh no, we had Alba Huerta from
hate on the mint julep.
Last week we had Alba Huerta from Julep in Houston, and we were talking about just how awesome that cocktail is, and like it's simple. So like that's I think where people you can't fuck around with it. You have to you have to do it right. And there's so many ways you could do it.
You just need like a little bit, a hint of all of it. So
and the cups changing every year is really cool, because I'm a big antique collector, especially when it comes to barware. And you go to these like antique stores, especially in like bourbon country, and you'll see a bunch of like silver julep cups, and they have the years stamped into them, and they're just like lined up. It's like it's so cool. And I already collect too many things, so it's like if I started collecting julep cups like that and try to get one from every year, this is the 151st year of the Derby, which is kind of cool because because I know that this year they're going to be doing 151 floaters on all of it. I know they're not doing that. I hope they don't.
That's where the leap from $1,000 to $5,000 comes in. You get that nice expertly floated thing of Bacardi 151 on there. Not really. I can see Elizabeth's face, and she's horrified. We're not really doing that.
You can do like a Woodford floater. That's fine. That's a good one.
And
I'm calling it 150 fun because 151. It's a play on words.
There you go.
My dad joke for you all.
Yeah, I love that. That's a mom joke. Well, speaking of that, so I was going to ask about that too. It's like I know that you were talking to us before about like this space that's like been so male dominated forever. It must be crazy and awesome to be for such a prestigious brand and being like the top dog in the company. It's like that's going to be amazing, right?
Yeah, no, it is. It's amazing, and it's also like I can't really wrap my head around. I mean, I was just on vacation, and we were down in the Caribbean and talking to somebody was like, well, what do you do? And I was like, well, do you know Woodford Reserve bourbon? They're like, yeah, like of course. And my mom actually, she's like a huge devotee to Woodford Reserve bourbon and she has it on the rocks and with a splash of water. That's her nightly drink. And I was like, oh my God. And I had talked to her mom earlier that day and I was like, oh, we're going to be best friends. Because it's rare to find women that are doing that. But then it's also like, wow, this is consumed all over the world. It doesn't get old seeing a bottle. You get on the plane and I look and there's a little airplane mini and it's got my signature on it. It's just like so weird.
That's going to be literally trippy.
It is, but then it also is like, I don't care about that at all. So it's like,
yeah,
I didn't get into this role and I didn't, start working for it because I wanted that, like that's a perk. If my name never ended up, I mean, it's just like it's like a huge honor, but it's like, that's not why I do it. I just like to make really good whiskey and, talk about it. And I just love Woodford so much. So to be able to represent it and do some different things. I mean, I just released speaking of just women in this space, it never dawned on me until I was at a meeting in DC and one of the, we were talking about one of our latest distillery series releases. It was called Chocolate Whisper Redo. But it's spelled Redux. So Redo, Redux. But it's because we had released a chocolate whisper once before, and these barrels were 12 years old, and I would drill into them and taste them in the warehouse constantly. And one day I was so curious, what is the proof on this? And when I pulled the proof, it was 165 proof.
Damn.
Never have I ever seen a whiskey that high. It was just did I do this right? I'm asking my QC guy, I'm like, Jonathan, double check me. I do this all the time, but this is unreal. And so we got the composite and I wanted to do a really high proof release because not just to do it just to be we can do high proof, but because it tasted so good at a high proof. But it also, I didn't really, and I was just wanting to share this with people. And I never thought about the perspective that, women only like low proof. Women don't like high proof. There's that might be a perception that's out there in the world. And I was that doesn't, I just don't think of myself in that space. I'm just doing stuff that I love. I think of myself like Forrest Gump, and I'm just doing what Jenny tells me to do. Just do the next best thing. And
right.
And so it's a huge honor. But yeah, it's the only time I feel pressure is kind of when I let myself get in my head too much about releases and that, and just remember you're making really good whiskey, and it's fun, and I mean, I'm not doing surgery, right?
I mean, I think that's the point, right? When we really get down to the brass tacks, this whole field of endeavor is frivolous, right? It's not really necessary. I hate to say it out loud, but it's true. But let's talk about this a little bit. Your mom was in the business as well. She worked at Seagram's and was kind of a role model for you to maybe be in this business. She headed up a group of people. And then now you do this. What sort of advice would you have to pass along maybe over the air here to women who are in the industry who might want to pursue the same track that you're on or just be in the field in general?
I think just come with confidence. Don't worry about what is sort of already existing. You have to be confident, and you have to just, if you're passionate about something, speak up. If you have an interest, go explore it. Because I feel like curiosity is what got me to where I am. It was I want, there's Chris Morris, the master distiller, and I have all the questions for him because he knows everything and I'm going to ask him everything. And it was because I was that loud person asking lots of questions. And he says I also offered to help set up, which nobody ever did when he would do these classes. But I was in the sensory lab. So I was like, I'll help you set up and whatever. And that stuck out to him. And it's because I was curious. And I feel like I entered this industry not knowing anything about it. And I just came with curiosity. And I still do that today. I mean, we're just saying whiskey's that way. You never can know everything about whiskey. Yep. You can never know. And just when you think, I'll never think I know it all because there's just so much to know. And it's fun. And that's what makes it fun. So I think if you're pursuing a job in this industry, follow your passions, speak up, and just be curious.
I think that's sound advice for anyone.
Yeah, it's great. And also, Chris Morris is such a quiet guy. He's easy to learn from. He's very calm, quiet.
I'm the luckiest person that his office is right next to mine, and we just hang out, and I can ask him about like anything, and he just is so full of sage advice, and he's just a genius. So
yeah. I have maybe a strange sort of ethereal question. I don't think that anyone thinks of their last day at a job when they take a job, right? Any job, whatever that job is, you're not thinking like, I'm already out of here. But a job like yours is a job that sort of people take, and that's your last job. You're a pretty young person still. You said you're about to celebrate your birthday. I won't reveal your age if you don't want to. But are you locked in? Do you think this is your last job?
Actually, it's so funny you asked that. So for all the listeners out there, I'm turning 40. So lordy, look who's 40, and I'm very proud.
I'll be 40 15 years ago. Thank you.
But if I retire at the age of 65, like the average, I have 25 more years in this industry.
Yeah.
And 25 years in this role. Like that's wild to think about, but also like I find a huge level of comfort in that, because I know, looking at Chris Morris's career, like I am going to be doing things like, I mean, the general gist of the work will be the same, but the industry changes so much, and what I get to do on a day-to-day basis is always so different that I find a lot of comfort and just happiness thinking like, this is what I'm going to do, and like I'll maybe get like internal promotions that nobody else will know about, and if I do a good job, and who knows? I mean, because Chris Morris, people know him as master distiller, but he was also vice president of whiskey innovation for Brown-Forman. So I mean, there are things internally that we could see progress, but I think when you're dealing with a brand like Woodford, having that longevity of somebody in a role is so important.
It is.
Chris has been the constant, and as you get different brand managers in and different people having different opinions about, Woodford should do this now and it should do this, you have one person who's like, no, this is what Woodford stands for, and that's how the brand has become so successful, because we have a true north. We've had that with Chris Morris, and now I kind of carried that on. And you don't see Woodford doing all these weird willy-nilly things. Like, we know what we're good at. We know we don't screw up the bourbon, because that's what people fall in love with, and don't mess it up. And so make sure we keep that good, and then still do some really cool stuff along the way. And so I feel very proud to carry that legacy on. And it also makes me sad, because I look at colleagues that are brilliant and they're going to get poached to go work on different brands and whatnot. But that's kind of the nature of it. But it's like, it's a weird thing to think about. Like, I'm here, I'm hanging out.
Yeah. Well, I think even what you just said about that constant voice, right? That's the tone. So the master distiller kind of sets the tone, and then there's other voices that come along and get smoothed out by that constant tone. And like, as you said, people will come and go, but that'll probably be good for you, because if everybody was all the same for the whole time, then maybe it becomes too static, right? You need some other voices to chime in once in a while and say, what if we did a double oak, right? Yeah. And then this is how this thing happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's pretty amazing. And I think it's an incredible position to be in. And I only thought of it as I asked the question, like, to say to yourself, I'm taking this job, and this means I'm like, you probably had to, when they made the offer letter is on the desk, you probably had to really consider, once I sign this is my job till it's over, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that was Chris Morris when I first started training with him. It was sort of those conversations we'd have while we were driving to get lunch. It's like, this is your job. Like, if you want to keep pursuing this, like, this is what you do. You don't like decide, I'm just going to be a salesperson one day. I mean, I guess I could and leave, but you don't get to do both. Like, this is what you're.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Well, doesn't sound like you have any regrets, though.
Yeah, no.
I love it. I mean, it's the greatest brand in the entire world. I love Woodford so much. I fell in love with it the moment I went to the distillery the first time when I joined the company in 2009, and I was like, this place it's magical, and everything about it is magical to me. So I just feel like I'm the luckiest person in the whiskey world, at least. Like, this is what I get to do every day. It's not too bad.
Pretty incredible and an incredible journey. And, very excited to sip on the rest of this double and see it in stores and talk to people about it. And I can't wait for people to hear this episode. And we'll be excited to see what you'll be at the Derby, I assume, on May the 3rd. By the way, Damon, you can't go because you have to be here in Brooklyn on May the 4th. I guess you could go.
Yeah,
theoretically.
I guess.
I've got my own party, but yeah, it's my bar's 10-year anniversary, so I got to be there for that, and I'll already be upstate, and I'm already afraid I'm gonna get there late anyway. So I should probably not throw in a Louisville. I was just in Louisville though, and man, I love that city, and I just love Kentucky in general. So any chance I get to go there, I take it. But I don't know if I have a big enough hat to wear to the Derby.
Well, that was gonna be my final question of the interview. Do you have a hat picked out for this year yet?
Working with Gigi Burris on my hat. So she's a hat maker in New York City. She's so cool. She makes the coolest hats, and they're very traditional ways of making it. So she's a true craftsman at what she does, and so we're collaborating. So I still have to get her what my dress is, then she's gonna do something awesome. So if you haven't seen her work before, like, she does men's and women's hats, and they're so classic. Like, yeah, her place is in New York. It's in Chinatown, her shop. So
yeah, I'm a big. I was joking about not having a hat to wear because I have probably like 300. But the
Damon has a hat to wear. He was just being modest.
I have a hard time picking out which one to wear. But yeah, she's an incredible hat maker, and that's cool that you're working with her. So that's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's going to be cool. I can't wait to wear one of her hats.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Elizabeth,
it'll look good with your solid gold julep cup.
Yeah.
Right.
Elizabeth, what a pleasure to have you on the show today and talk to us about this new release, and we're excited to have it. Do you have how can people follow along with your hijinks and antics over there at Woodford?
They can follow, of course, Woodford Reserve has an Instagram, so just at Woodford Reserve. But then I have an Instagram for work that's my WR Master Distiller, so Woodford Reserve Master Distiller. You can Google or search my name in there, and it'll pop up. I have a personal account that's personal and whiskey. I mean, it is. So I feel like, because I started that one first, and then the brand started another one. So I'm going to be better about my social media presence. Not the best.
Yeah.
Cool.
Listen.
Who is?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey, thank you so much
for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
This was great. I'm excited for the Kentucky Derby. I'm like, man, now I'm sad I have to wait another 6 weeks for it. I want it here now.
The most exciting 2 minutes in sports.
Well, and be sure you send us pictures of your hat too once it comes in, because
I'll have to make sure you get to see what Gigi.
We love hats. We're hat people here.
We're hat people.
Well, that is going to do it for us this week on The Speakeasy. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to tune into HRN for plenty more great programs just like this one. And if you want more of this great program just like this one, you can become a regular on our Patreon page. We have a link in the show notes, and that is going to get you bonus content. It is going to get you ad-free listening. It is going to get you a free cocktail kit from our friends at Shaker and Spoon every month, but it is no longer going to get you video podcasts. Want to know why? Of course you do, because we are not paywalling those anymore. Those are on our YouTube page. So if you want to see what's going on here, as well as listening to us, you can see that link in our show notes as well. And be sure to tune in next week when our guest is going to be Krista Cotton from El Guapo Bitters. They've got a bitters and soda RTD line coming out. So I'm very excited to talk about that and where the market for RTDs might be going next. But for now, I have one thing to say,
actually. I'm going to tag on with the bitters thing.
It's not going to do it for us this week.
I'm just going to tag on with the bitters thing, as I am wont to do. But I want to do something that Damon doesn't do for himself, and that's promote him a little bit. Damon's been working with King Floyd's bitters for a bit now out in California. And Damon used to make Buddha's Hand bitters long ago when we worked together at Prime Meats. And now King Floyd's has a limited release of Damon's Buddha's Hand bitters. And I think if you can get out there and get some, I think you should.
Thanks, Sother. Yeah, speaking of names on bottles, so I started making those Buddha's Hand bitters about almost 20 years ago, and people have been asking me forever. I used to just give out little bottles to people, close friends and whatnot, and people still ask for them, and I was like, you know what? I got a bunch of Buddha's Hand, and we made some together, and so they're out now. You can find them at kingfloyds.com. Thanks for the shout out, Sother.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, we got some. Actually, we got some in the mail the other day, and I'd never gotten a chance to try them, so they are quite good. So thank you for sending them my way.
They work with everything. They work with Woodford Reserve Double.
Yes, they do.
A little dash in your Manhattan.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, with that note, then, Greg.
Yes, with that note, happy National, possibly International Vermouth Day to everyone, and until next time. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Team.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock.
The Speakeasy is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food and drink radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.